Production support for Hot and Cold is brought to you by American Solar Technics, manufacturers of components for wood burning and solar heating systems.
Hey, I'm Tom Gosse. Welcome to Hot and Cold. Spring has officially sprung. It is just a gorgeous day here on the coast of Maine, and I am taking full advantage of all kinds of things today, most of which have to do with paint. There's paint almost everywhere on my person. Not all the places you're going to get to see, but if you stay, we got a lot of things we do need to see. Well, I'm not really ready to paint the outside of the house yet, but this door has been giving me a problem since last autumn. We've got a beautiful Stanley fiberglass door here, but I've had mold forming on the wood, which is the frame, and you can see here I've already put one coat of Kills on it, and if you look up here with the sun being as wickedly bright as it is today, I think you can still see the mildew and mold bleeding through. So this is the second coat of Kills to try to suppress all that. What happened was two things. We had water coming down before we had the building really tightened up. The door was here, and it got wet on the backside, and it just was a mess. So surprisingly, got moldy. So I'm just going to put a couple more coats of Kills on here, make sure everything is not bleeding through, and then we'll get some house paint just to get something on here so it's not just in primer. But we've got other things to look at, so what I'm going to do is take my little teeny paintbrush and I just wrap it in a piece of plastic because it's much simpler than cleaning it, and I'll come back to this after we do the rest of the TV show. Put the cover on my Kills and come on inside. Well, before I let the cameraman in the house, I do want to explain what Kills is. Kills is basically a primer sealer. It takes care of nasty things that form on wood and sheetrock and stuff, and I'm putting it on everywhere before I paint. It makes the finished paint go a lot quicker, and it's relatively inexpensive, and especially when you buy it in a 5-gallon bucket, which is the only way you should buy paint if you can. What I do, because I'm using this for primer for the entire house, is inside the bucket, look what I've got. I've got a roller screen, which I very carefully hook on like that, and I use a roller, and I just roll right here. I have no pan I use for putting the primer on, so I'm going to let that sink back in. I just leave it there. How cool. My friend Jim told me about that. It works real well. You only get a little bit of paint on your hand when you have to lift the screen up to do your priming, but come on inside. There's lots of priming going on. We're in the living room, and as you can see, the living room has been painted. Again, the coat of primer, then this is one coat of Behr. This is the plug for Behr, lifetime warranty paint. It covers very well. I'm sure any good interior paint would cover well with a good primer on it. I found upstairs, I didn't prime it when I started doing some of those small rooms, and the Behr sheetrock just, of course, sucked the paint into it, and it really took several gallons to do tiny rooms. I used 1 gallon to do this giant room and still had some left over for touch-up. We're almost ready for trim. We've got to get the floor down first. I'm working on getting some ceiling trim up, which we'll show you in a minute, and get everything done. And then when we have the flooring, this room will be ready to rock and roll. This will go very quickly to get the flooring down. Then we put baseboards on. Then we'll window trim, because the window trim ties to the baseboards. You probably don't remember that, but it does, and you'll see how it goes together. So there's 3 windows in this room. We'll get some fancy kind of antique trim that replicating what was here originally. One thing we did a little different is there was a fuse box here way back when. We now have a circuit breaker box, and we've boxed that in the thickness of a 2x6 sheetrocked it. We'll have a big door over this here, and we can still have some stuff like burglar alarms or whatever, freeze alarms inside here. We've got room for that. We've got cable wires, stuff waiting to happen. I just painted this a little while ago, so it's almost dry. These things, this is perfect because I can now have the windows open and things are drying very rapidly. The other trim that I've taken advantage of doing is the door trim. We have, and I'm going to grab a piece of the basic door trim, which we used for all the downstairs doors, and maybe we can get an edge shot of that because the edge really shows it. Does that look good? This is from an old house in Hamden, and my friend Skip Bunker from Meadow Crest Millwork Appalachian Fence Company made that. And we put that on, and that trim by itself, you could use it by itself, but really begs for an overcap. And the overcap is this. I'll grab the piece again. I put it down prematurely, didn't I? There's the piece of trim. An overcap just goes over the back edge, like so, to just bump it up and make it a little more jazzier profile. We used that profile on the atrium door and on that side entry door, but over here where it's the front entry, we used a fatter detail, which we got from Tumbling Lumber. We got from Paul Bunyan Lumber. And this is just a bigger detail, a little bit fancier looking, and it doesn't take much to put it up, and it does a really nice job of making this front entry a little more grand, which I think is appropriate. I mean, it's not overly grand because we're dealing with pine. We're trying to keep that kind of colonial look given the age of the house. So all I've got to do now is fill all the nail holes and put some urethane on it, and that'll be ready. Over here at the atrium door, we have the same trim as the other door, except we have the narrower piece of edging here. And again, this is not the main entry. I've got one coat of urethane on all this because this door really has been responding a lot to the moisture coming in off the bay. So I got one coat on. We'll have to sand it down, put 2 or 3 more coats. The ladybugs are still here. I've got doors open today, so we're trying to let them out of the building, and we're getting there. Oh, one thing I want to show, we've got a break coming up here real quick. We're getting some ceiling trim up, and I boogered up the corner, but with a little bit of caulk. Don't get too close. You're sitting on the sofa looking at it now. Don't get too close. It looks pretty presentable. And that's with, you know, if you were painting, you could even get away with more. But with, we've been able to pull that together. And we'll show you some of that later as to how it goes together the proper way. We've got some grout here on the windowsill granite, which really is blending real well. This is a lighter grout than we used in the bathroom floor. And I like it a lot better, to the point that I'm almost thinking about taking the grout out of the bathroom floor. But I'm not that crazy right now. That'd be a good TV show for next year, wouldn't it? Anyway, we got to take a quick break. The kitchen, the floor is done, and we got to talk about it. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Hey, we're back. And we're in the kitchen, and we got a lot of things going on in the kitchen, not the least of which is I promised you last show we were here that I was going to show you the grout going on the floor, and I lied because I did the grout because I had to get the grout in the floor because we got all this stuff in the kitchen, which are our Mills Pride kitchen cabinets. And I want you to make a mental picture. Remember this moment. This is the whole kitchen. They come knocked down. We're not doing cabinets today, okay? But we'll be looking at them again. But we'll fill the room with cabinets, and we don't have much here. This was one modest pickup load. So we'll look at that in a second. I wanted to just show you the floor here. What we've done is we've put the grout in, and it's pretty straightforward stuff, and same grout color that we have over there. In case you're wondering, it's DeLorean gray, and I've never seen a DeLorean up close, but I assume that's the color gray a DeLorean is. So we will show you that when the time comes. I have one sink base here that I have assembled, and I tell you this, and it is not a lie, this took me 5 minutes to assemble. It's much simpler assembly than the vanity we did, which took a little bit longer. And I needed to assemble this because we're having this is going to be a laundry sink. We're going to have a refrigerator here, laundry sink here, washer, dryer. The laundry sink, we used a regular sink base. We wanted a cabinet for storage. And we're going to have a stainless steel sink made. I don't know how much it's going to cost. Hopefully it isn't going to be too much. And we'll put that in here, set it in, and we'll plumb it up. And there's another TV show right there, by gory. But the cabinets are going to wait till we're done sanding. And you know what? Today, I think I have actually finished doing the big sanding in the house. So let's look around. I'll show you the rest of what I've been up to since you were last here. There's been a lot, actually. So let's go over there. So we're working our way. This really is one of the major last areas that we have to do, and it's really one of the messiest ones, is getting up the stairs and doing the sanding. And the sanding is pretty much done. I've got the primer on here. You see these holes in the wall are from, I was roughing the trim in, and then I realized I don't want to put the trim up until I paint, because then I've got to cut it in around it. So I just pulled it all out, and I just had pre-cut it on a day when I didn't want to paint, and I still have more sanding to do. So we'll get paint on here, and then we'll put the trim back up. We are going to come up the stairs with wainscoting, and we've got a line here. So the beauty, again, of the wainscoting is from here down. Who cares? I don't care what the taping looks like. It's just there to seal the walls. I didn't touch it. But you can see up above the line here now, the difference of the Kills primer is white, and it doesn't look like much, but it's tremendous in what it does to seal the wall, to keep moisture from going through. So from the paint especially. So that's a good thing. I guess probably we need to go upstairs. You can see here the dust. I haven't vacuumed everything. This is about the third or fourth hit I've had on this wall where I've gone over it, sanded it, filled, gone over, sanded, filled, and because I'm basically a lumpy drywaller, and there were a lot of lumps. Well, we're on the stairs, and people always wonder when we're doing stairs, how do you deal with those high areas you can't get to? We're doing it with a couple of 2x8 planks that I was planning on returning, and I said there's probably a reason why I should have them here, and this is the reason, because I can crawl over here, do the crab walk, and be up off the floor about 8-10 feet, and reach these areas that would otherwise be difficult to reach. Especially for painting, it's not too bad because you can reach a lot of this with extended things, but for sanding, for doing the drywall, you have to be up close and personal, getting nice and dusty. So that's what I've been doing, and they go in under the bathtub here, and that's why I haven't finished the ceiling here, because I have the planks going through. Once I get all the painting done, the planks can come out, the bathtub can get closed up, and the world will be a much better place. In the process, I forgot downstairs, one of the other reasons I haven't put that trim in yet is because the trim weaves in with the wainscoting, and that interfaces with the stair treads. We're going to be putting oak stair treads here, so there's all these things that have to happen in a proper sequence. So the trim is a lot easier to deal with. It isn't as funky, and it'll go quicker. I mean, we can do it probably several different ways. Am I making any sense here? But what we need to do is get the treads down, then we put the first we paint, then we put the treads down, then we put the wainscoting, then we urethane everything, and then we work our way up the stairs, and soon it'll be done. And this is the last room we have to do. This is the last room for sanding, at least. And the sanding is pretty much done. But what I like to do is get some primer up over my drywall so I can see if I missed something, or I messed something up, or if the primer messes something up. And I'll go over and just touch up a little bit, and usually not even re-prime it, because it's just usually very small areas. Like here, see this? We've got holes that were in the drywall, air bubbles, and we'll just fill that again so they don't show, and then we can paint right over that. So it just shows up a little bit better to me when we've got some primer on it. So we get the primer up. We're 95% done with the sanding at this point. So in my book, that says that most of the dust is going to be done with. I primed this wall even though it was already painted, because it was that color green like you can see over there. And this room is going to be painted a light color. So we do want to put a primer on it, or the Kills, just to cut the really deep color from showing through when we go to put the paint on. Why haven't we painted over here, you ask? Well, very good question. We're going to wainscot this wall, and that'll save a lot of nonsense because this was a pretty funky wall, and we're going to tile this. I think we've already told you that. Everything else is pretty much ready to go. Just a little bit of touch up here. And what I do, this is a perfect kind of job for an evening or whatever. You come in here and you think, oh, what am I going to do? You get out the joint compound and just touch up. So we're getting very close. This room is going to be a little bit funkier than some of the other rooms, or these two upstairs bedrooms are, because there's more original stuff here. And we're kind of keeping it that way. I mean, we really could have gutted the room and put sheetrock up and everything, but I kind of like the fact that there's some old lumps in the walls because it's an old house. So we still have the old house feel up here, and you know, when we get some paint on it, it'll look pretty cool. A crack like this here, that's from when we lifted the house, and I missed that when I went to seal, you know, when I was doing drywall. What I'm going to do with something like that is we'll put some latex caulk over that and run it nice and smooth with some water, and that'll have some resiliency. So if there is any shrinkage, expansion and contraction with the humidity, that won't open and close if it were just drywall, and we don't have to tape it then. That'll solve that. That probably opened when we jacked up the house. It was quite an episode. Anyway, let's do this. Let's take another quick break and we can wrap things up. Well, we're back, and I don't think we've been in here for a little while, and we're almost done, but I thought we ought to just come back in and take a quick peek in the bathroom. We've got this is about 99.8% finished. A few little things to do. We've got a light fixture to go here. We've been waiting with the sanding to get done with that before the light fixture goes in, so that might happen today. We've got a mirror to go here. That might happen today too, but not on this show. It'll be the next show. We've got our trim detail around the top of the wainscoting over the top of our backsplash, which I think ties together kind of nice. We have GFI protected outlets here. Everything's been urethaned at this point. All the grout over here has been done. We've caulked joints and sealed things. One thing I want to point out, and it would have been a good TV show except I discovered it in between tapings. I got the faucet in here, and this is kind of cool because we can't have a shower. We have this nice shower faucet. This is called a deck-mounted faucet because it mounts on the deck here, which was what our application called for. First time I hooked that up and I checked things, the drain leaked. So I took this all apart and I resealed it right because I hadn't. And so then I said, well, just to be safe, I should fill the tub. Fill the tub all the way up. Something's leaking. I'm looking around and double checked everything. Down here it was okay. It was leaking up here because this, if you look here, this tub wall slopes, and there is a gasket that goes behind there that is angled. And of course, Mr. Home Improvement had the angled gasket in upside down. So that was pretty exciting to find that. That would have been a good TV show, huh? But anyway, I'm telling you about it. So if you ever put a tub together, pay attention to that detail because it isn't always that obvious. And I do these just infrequently enough that I forget every time I do it. Or maybe I'm just getting old enough that I forget every time I do it. Whatever it is, it's not a big thing until you close everything up. I had not closed everything up in the back here. If we swing around, maybe Mr. Cameraman wants to take a peek there. So we've got that all closed in with wainscoting now. And I did not close that up until I was absolutely positive everything in there functioned. These did not leak, that did not leak, the drain did not leak, and everything downstream from the drain did not leak. And same thing goes for underneath it as well. And let's do this. Let's go take a look at what's underneath it, and then we'll run outside maybe and wrap things up. So we're right underneath the bathtub now in the hallway, and I don't think I really pointed it out. We've walked by it a lot. But this is the ceiling, the new drop ceiling we have underneath the bathtub. So we have access to all the plumbing just by removing a couple of these pieces of edge and center bead pine. We can get into anything we need to get into. The plan is we never have to, but if we do, this will come apart fairly easy. So that's all done, and that's been urethaned. And all we need now is to put the trim up. And finish painting, then we put up the trim. You always put up the paint before the trim. I've thought about this. Let's go outside for a minute. Boy, there's nothing like outdoor plumbing. We had a faucet here. We had an outdoor silcock before. It was down too low, and when I put the trim in, it was intersecting with the trim. It was down about here. So I couldn't put the flashing on. So I put a new one in. This is from our friends at Zern, and this is a frost-proof silcock with a backflow preventer built in. And what I've done is there's foam sticking out from there when I put it in. I mounted it on a piece of the AZEK trim that we're using all around the house, so we can just put siding right around this. We'll start putting our siding on very soon, actually. I've got a piece of flashing on top here. We got flashing down here, and we've used copper flashing because up overhead we have a copper roof. And if I put any other kind of flashing here, like something galvanized or aluminum, what would potentially happen is when it rained and snowed, precipitation would run copper ions down. The copper ions would be apt to make the less noble metals, which would be aluminum or galvanized, rust or oxidize. So we want copper everywhere. We locked ourselves into that with the copper roof. And actually it's very elegant looking. It's fun to work with. It's almost as much fun as working with pine, except with flashing you tend to cut your fingers. With pine I don't usually cut my fingers. But nonetheless, we've got that in here because very soon we're going to be putting siding on the building, and we've made it through the winter. Thank goodness. But you can see the tar paper has weathered pretty good. You can see the staples are getting ready to pop out. So if you're ever gonna do if you're doing the tar paper shack thing, and you want to live in the tar paper shack for a while, the strapping is the only way to make it happen. One other thing, it hasn't been an issue over here, but I've got the flashing over top of the tar paper, and that's not a good way to shed water in the wintertime. If you're going to do a tar paper shack, or if you're doing this right, if you have the luxury, and we didn't, you'd put the flashing on first, bring the tar paper down over it so water sheds away from the building. Right now we could conceivably funnel water behind here. We're not here. We are over by that door I was just putting the kills on. So I've come full circle in this period of time. And I have to deal with that issue by treating that. And it'll be solved once we get the siding up overhead here. You can see there's all kinds of stuff up there that's just making water go down in. Apparently there's been enough leaking down through here. So we're going to solve that very quickly in the next week or two by getting the siding on the building. And oh, isn't that going to transform everything? I guess we're just about out of time. So be sure to give us a call on the radio if you have any questions. I don't know if we've conjured up any or not, but nonetheless we can answer them. You see we're at the end of the show. Revel in springtime. It is finally here. What a great day.
Production support for Hot and Cold is brought to you by American Solar Technics, manufacturers of components for wood burning and solar heating systems.